They laughed at her at the dinner table. Her father pointed, saying, "She is not my real granddaughter. She gets nothing." The room went silent, then whispers, and laughter erupted. Emily, my adopted daughter, sat frozen with tears in her eyes. I stood up slowly, looking straight at my father. I said, "Then you just signed your biggest mistake." Everyone turned to me in confusion, not knowing what I meant, not knowing what I was about to reveal. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 36 years old. I work in healthcare administration. It's not glamorous work, but it taught me responsibility, patience, and how to listen when people feel forgotten. I grew up where money was never the problem, but love always was. My father was strict, obsessed with legacy. Everything had to look perfect from the outside, even when it was broken inside. After my mother died, the house felt colder. When I adopted Emily, I didn't do it for sympathy. I knew what it felt like to grow up unloved. Emily was not a replacement for anything. She was my daughter, full stop, but my father never accepted her. To him, she was not real family, a mistake, a problem. I stayed away from him most of my adult life. I built my own career quietly, without asking for his approval. I wanted peace, not control. What he never understood was simple. I wasn't rich or powerful in his way, but I had built something of my own that even he did not know about. And tonight, that truth was about to come out. If you've ever been judged for the family you created, or the love you chose, subscribe right now. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone reject what matters most to you? Click like and hype if you believe love is stronger than blood. The dinner table was set like a celebration, but the air felt heavy, like something was already wrong. My father sat at the head, calm, confident. Cousins whispered, watching Emily like she didn't belong. Then he tapped his glass. "I want to make something clear tonight," he said. "I have updated my will." Nobody moved. Even the fork stopped mid-air. He looked at Emily. "She is not part of it. She gets nothing." A few guests let out awkward laughs. Emily's lips trembled. She just looked at me, trying to understand. My chest tightened, but I stayed still. My father continued, "Blood is all that matters, not mistakes life brings." That word hit me harder than anything else. Mistakes. That's what he called my daughter. I felt my cousin lean towards someone and whisper, "I told you adoption never really counts." That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, not panic. Something colder, clearer. My father smiled slightly, expecting me to break, to argue, to beg. Instead, I stood up slowly. The chair scraped against the floor, loud in the silence. I said, "You made a decision." Without knowing the truth, everyone turned toward me. My father tilted his head. "And what truth is that, Sarah?" I looked him in the eye and said calmly, "You just disrespected the owner of your retirement home." For a second, nobody understood. Then the silence turned heavier. Confused eyes shifted between us. My father let out a short laugh. "Owner? You work in care administration, Sarah. Don't embarrass yourself." I didn't smile. I didn't sit down, because that was the moment everything started to change. The laughter faded quickly. My father looked at me like I had crossed a line. "Sit down," he said sharply. One cousin laughed. "She's talking about her little office job again." Another added, "That's not ownership. That's service work." They all started laughing again, but it sounded forced now. Emily held my hand under the table, shaking. I stayed calm, but inside I was counting every moment, every document, every truth I had kept hidden. My father leaned back. "You really think you have power here? You're living in fantasy." I looked at him and said nothing. That silence made him more confident. That was his mistake. After the dinner, things didn't stop. They got worse. My cousin started spreading stories about me being broke. At family gatherings, they excluded Emily completely. My father doubled down. He'd casually mention how some people try to pretend they are more important. Every time he did it, people laughed, and every time, I said nothing. But I started documenting everything. Every comment, every decision, every conversation about the retirement home operations. He thought I was too small to understand. What they didn't notice was that I was no longer reacting. I was preparing. And slowly, something started to shift in the retirement home itself. Staff began treating me with quiet respect. Managers started asking me questions my father used to answer. Small things, subtle things, things he didn't pay attention to. He thought I had no influence. He was wrong, because I wasn't just watching the system anymore. I was already inside it. I sat alone one night after work, looking at files and records. What they didn't know was, I never stayed powerless. Years ago, my mentor left me something I never spoke about: majority control in the retirement home group my father depended on. I never used it. I never wanted to. I thought silence would keep peace in the family. But peace doesn't survive disrespect. And my father had crossed a line I could no longer ignore. I had proof of financial mismanagement. I had signed documents. I had records of decisions made without proper approval. And I had something he never expected: control. They thought I was just observing, but I was building a case that would change everything. The old family lawyer was the first person I called. He knew things my father had forgotten existed. When I met him, he didn't ask questions. He just looked at the documents and said quietly, "So it's time." I nodded. He said, "You understand what this will do to your family?" "I understand what they already did," I replied. He sighed and agreed to help me finalize everything. Meanwhile, my father became more confident. He started planning a public speech at a charity gala, talking about legacy and bloodline. He was preparing to erase Emily completely, in front of everyone. He thought I was alone. He thought I was finished. He had no idea I was waiting for the exact moment he would destroy himself in public. At the gala, the hall was full. Cameras were there. Important guests. My father stood on stage. He smiled and said, "Tonight is about family values and legacy." Then he said it again. "Emily will not be part of our inheritance." Applause followed. Some hesitated, but most clapped anyway. Then I stood up and walked toward the stage. Every step felt quiet, but heavy. I said, "Before this continues, I need to correct something." My father frowned. "Sit down, Sarah. This is not your place." I turned to the audience. "No," I said. "Actually, it is." I looked at the screen behind him and signaled. Documents appeared. Ownership records. Transfer confirmations. Legal proof. The room shifted instantly. Whispers started. Phones came out. My father looked at the screen and froze. "No," he said under his breath. "That's not possible." The lawyer stepped forward and said, "It is fully legal. Sarah Mitchell is the majority owner." Silence hit the room like a wave. I looked at my father and said, "You insulted the owner of your own empire." His face changed completely. He tried to speak, but security moved closer. Following instructions that came from me, Emily was brought to my side. I took her hand and said, "She is not a mistake. She is my daughter, and she belongs here." My father stood there, powerless, as everything he believed he controlled slipped away in front of everyone. The applause was gone. Only silence remained. After that night, everything changed. My father lost authority immediately. Control of the retirement home operations shifted fully to me. The system he built around pride and control collapsed under truth and documentation. Emily was finally accepted, not as an exception, but as family. People who once laughed now avoided eye contact. Some tried to apologize, but I didn't need their words anymore. I focused on fixing what needed to be fixed inside the system, making sure care was given properly and respectfully. My father was left with nothing but silence and consequences, and for the first time in years, I felt something simple: peace. Not because I destroyed him, but because I finally stopped letting him define us. And I learned something I will never forget. Silence can carry more power than shouting when it is backed by truth. If your family ever doubted your worth or tried to take away what you built, you understand this pain. Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. Have you ever been underestimated by the people closest to you? Subscribe for more stories like this. Click hype to help this story reach others who are silently fighting the same battles. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give this video helps empower someone else who feels unseen or underestimated. Thank you for being here and listening. I truly believe your voice matters, and your story might be the strength someone else is waiting for today.